Now, may I request Ms. Deepti Barwe to moderate the session on food processing machinery and technology. So this session again has a very, we have expert speakers in this session. So I would request Ms. Deepti to take over the session and introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vibha ma'am. Welcome all panelists. First, I would like to introduce our panelists. Dr. Anand Dharma Krishnan, he's the director of Indian Institute of Food Processing Technology. Then I would like to welcome Dr. Chindi Vasudevappa, he's the vice chancellor of National Institute of Food Technology Entrepreneurship and Management. I would like to welcome Sanjeev Gupta, Director of Kanchan Metal Private Limited, and also Agro and Food Processing Equipment and Technology Providers Association. I would like to welcome Mr. P.L. Kaul, Director of Mariantial India Private Limited. I would like to welcome Girish Bajaj, Managing Director of Bajaj Food Process Packs Limited. And I would like to welcome Rajesh Rathi, is the President of Control Infotech Private Limited. So welcome all the panelists. Before starting this technical session, I would like to give some background information on this. So it is estimated that the market for plant and machinery in the food processing sector in the year 2024 and 2025 will be 51.41 USD billion as compared to the current value, that is US dollar 17.3 billion. It was in 2016 and 17. And China, Germany, and Italy are the top three countries from where India imported its food processing equipment in 2016 and 17. Sector-wise, bakery cereal processing is the single largest segment in terms of import of machinery. India food processing equipment, or you can say machinery market, is expected to grow at steady rate during the forecast period. And Indian food processing equipment market is driven by growing need to achieve food safety and fulfill the demand of its ever increasing population. And additionally, increasing awareness among the population pertaining to food safety and health consciousness is further expected to propel the market growth through 2025. So I would like to start the session with Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, is the director of AFTPAI and also director of Kanchan Metals. Sir, my first question is to you that due to COVID pandemic and awareness about the use of packed food, the market for processed food is picking up in the country. So how do you see the growth of food processing machinery in India? Mr. Sanjeev Gupta? Sir, we cannot hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me
Now
now?
we can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Please go ahead.
yeah, thank you for inviting me to this session. And I also extend my welcome to all my panelists, co-panelists. Now, food processing sector as such is today the real sunrise sector of our country, and it's the right time for this kind of a session and this kind of an event. No doubt, due to this COVID pandemic, there has been a lot of dynamic changes in the consumption pattern of the food and the consumers' approach towards packed food. And also, that has driven the need for a great level of automation at the food processing end. This automation has been gradually happening in our country, but this pandemic has really given a big push towards it. And this new opportunity of automation is really one of the, according to me, one of the drivers of the growth of food processing machinery in India. And the consumption patterns changing, the approach towards more healthy food. All these things are also inviting more technologies into the country, which is also expanding the food processing machinery market in a lateral manner. It's not only one kind of a technology which we have been working upon, which is the driver. I think the growth of food processing machinery in India has a great potential, and the food processing segment itself is growing at a healthy pace. So machinery sector, I would say just the automation sector, if I just concentrate on it, I look at a growth of nearly 7% plus on a year-to-year basis, just on the automation, because that is one area where I think this segment needs to focus more.
Okay. And the next question is to you is like, what kind of suggestions Agro and Food Processing Equipment and Technology Providers Association of India wish to make to the government for the growth of Indian food processing machinery industry?
Yeah, we have been having dialogues with the government and presentations at various levels. The one point which I always like to mention is that the food machinery sector, it is not linked to the food processing ministry. This is one thing which I think is a big gap, and we are always submitting to the government that our machinery sector should be a part of the Ministry of Food Processing Industry. Then only this segment gets the right recognition, and it can benefit along with the food. There are a lot of focus on the food processing sector, but this machinery sector is in fact nowhere. It's neither here nor there. So we suggest that this should be a part of the food Ministry of Food Processing, so that all policies for the food processing sector should be a part of.
Hello. So your voice.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So it should be a part of the food processing policies. And another thing which can really help is, our food processing sector, which is our customers, they should be given a kind of a fillip to do the capex from local machinery manufacturers in a way that accelerated rate of depreciation should be allowed to them in the first year, which will give a fillip to the local machinery sector, because the capex for them will be beneficial if they get an accelerated rate of depreciation, which they can claim in the first year itself. And to add fillip to the growth of the industry in India, today we are largely dependent upon imports. So we need to make the imports, especially on technologies which are properly developed in India, to be more expensive, especially coming in from China. I would like to point it out. It should be more than the GST rates applicable to us in the local sales. And of course, government should also try to boost and market the database of the Indian food machinery manufacturers for inviting joint ventures and collaborations, because we need to bring in technology from developed countries, because otherwise the R&D is very long in developing new technologies, and for which if certain specific tax holidays or some more attractive schemes can be announced just for this segment, I think it will help this segment to grow at a much faster pace.
Okay. Mr. Girish Bajaj also would like to share his views on this topic. Mr. Bajaj? Mr. Bajaj, are you there?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Girish Bajaj. I'm the Managing Director of Bajaj Process Pack Limited. We are a Indian engineering company which has been working in the fruit and vegetable processing industry for the last 32 years. And so we've also, since we have been following the growth and the the graph of the food processing industry very closely for the last 3 decades, there are some points that I also would like to share with the panelists and all the viewers. Is that I agree with Mr. Gupta that somewhere down the line, the machinery manufacturers, especially the food processing machinery manufacturers, should also come under the umbrella somewhere of MOFPI, because ultimately, directly, indirectly, we are closely involved with all the schemes of MOFPI, whether at the state level or the central level. One of the very important things that we need to do is that there needs to be some sort of an incentivization on either collaborations or local indigenization of all the plant and machinery that are imported. Now, we can take a cue from even the automobile sector, or even what the Ministry of Defense is doing. Even if, Defense Ministry is importing Rafale jets, it is ensuring that there is a local indigenization of that with a local partner, which will ensure that in times to come, spares, services, and everything is also backed up. So that sort of a tie-up should be made mandatory, and there should be a incentivization to the industry that, look, if you are going to buy, let's say, at least 30% or 40% of your plant and machinery from the local vendors, that you would either have a higher rate of depreciation, or even higher subsidy, if that the case could be. Secondly, one more important thing that I'd like to share with you is that if you look at the automobile sector, how it has grown over the years. From day one, the Indian government was very clear that, if it is a completely built-up unit, a CBU unit being imported from anywhere, will attract a higher duty. Whereas the same equipment, even if it is brought in a completely knocked down or indigenized to a level, would attract lower duties. So that sort of a thing kick-started the revolution of automobile industry. So you would not have seen all the majors like the Toyotas and the Mercedes of the world manufacturing in India if this sort of a incentive and de-incentive schemes were not there. Third point I feel is that there should be a closer cooperation between the government agencies like DRDO, IIT, or other such research institutes with private sector companies who are operating in this field for developing or import substitutional equipments. So there could be an identification by, let's say, a parent body like MOFPI that, okay, these are the 10 equipments which necessarily should be indigenized or developed in India in the next, say, 5 years plan. Now, in that 5 years, let's say an IIT could, roll out a plan with some sort of a subsidy from the central government, and then companies like ours could be part of that R&D process. So that would sort of take the pain or the entire financial burden from MSMEs like us, and rather shift it to some sort of incentives from the government, and ultimately it's the industry which will incent. So for example, in the long run, let's say by 2025, if we say, okay, aseptic sterilizer and fillers have to be necessarily indigenized, and government will provide so and so. So look at the industry, how it will develop from a 2 crore plant. So tomorrow, if an industry can purchase the same thing locally, 50 lakhs, it's an incentive for all. So these are some of the points that I'd like to share with all. Thank you.
Yeah. My next question to you, Girish sir. Coming to the innovative food processing technology, what is the role of private sector in the development of new food processing technology?
See, private sectors like us need to have, I would say, ear to the ground when it comes to developing technologies. What happens is, I have seen the focus is always on trying to do the larger projects, which of course is also one of the, for example, a company like ours, while it is simultaneously, setting up projects all across India for, 5 tons, 10 tons per hour capacities of tomato paste and so on and so forth, with both local and imported equipments brought in together. But we are also trying to always work with the small MSMEs. So that is where the the growth will happen, because as we all know, Indian food processing industry almost constitutes 42% of the food processing industry in India is still in the unorganized sector. And if we can develop the cheap, reliable and sustainable technologies for this sector, I'm sure this is how the development of this sector will go. That is how they will go and progress towards the small and medium enterprises. So give you an example, we've been working with small enterprises to try and see. So, we work extensively in Northeast, and we found that Northeast pineapple, while it is there, but the MSMEs are still struggling with the pineapple peelers and corers. So we actually got down, developed a very small, simple, and very credible equipment, which, as we speak now, has just been commissioned at one of the plants that we are setting up in Manipur. And suddenly, the capacity of that plant to handle pineapple is really grown up. So that's one of the duties of MSMEs, companies like ours, to develop, and that is what we're doing, to sort of work closely with the industry to see what exactly is the need, and then develop technologies accordingly.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your wonderful views. My next question is for Dr. Chindi Vasudevappa. He is the Vice Chancellor of NIFPEM. Sir, my question is to you. What kind of role National Institute of Food Technology and Entrepreneurship and Management is playing in reaching up industry when it comes to food technology transfer?
Yeah. Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I think, you have rightly said the role and responsibility of national institutes like NIFTEM or IFPT and things like that. Probably now what India needs, we need to understand very clearly. So we thought that food processing is a street, sort of a vending type of an activity. Now we are getting into real, I would say, the manufacturing process, which ensures safety and quality. So that's where the difference, and probably I would even say under this Atmanirbhar Bharat also, a lot of these micro industries upgradation we are just planning. That means our thinking has changed from the traditional way of supplementing the food to the modern way of, in fact, improving the quality and safety of the food. Then who are the people? So where are the people for this? That means a capacity building exercise has to happen. The technical core competency has to come. That means the institutes which are involved, could be IFPT or could be NIFTEM and all that, we need to build capacity of the students. Now I would say the student minds are very sharp, and I would say they are quite focused, and their requirements are different, and they are falling in line with the modern trends. So that means we need to understand that, give them a focus, teach them everything, and probably make them also innovate. So that innovations, though a small one, will definitely help the industry. And I would even say here, in fact, we are working with the industries under what I call a banner of contract research organization. So that means the contract research is something which the industry comes up with their problems and we try to analyze, involving even the students. So that means this sort of a research, a continued research. Already there are 5 industries who are working with us. Likely in 1 or 2 years, now just very recently we have started this, another 5 or 10 industries will join. This should become a wave. This is something which is very, very important. Of course, with regard to their capabilities and how to sharpen their skills and things like that, that skill development is something which is also very, very important. So that we are taking up through our incubation facility to a certain extent. I would even say through the industry per se. And we are deputing our students as interns to various industries. They work there for 4 to 6 months. They come up with even some of the technologies or the products and things like that, that will make them really understand what is the requirement of the industry. So that is another thing which is very, very important, and also helps them even in the placement activity as they grow. So this is another very important thing. Of course, coming to the research proper, so we need the personnel. Here, in fact, in food, we have accepting CFTRI Mysore, which was doing a good job, and it's an old institution. And NIN is focused more on the inherent nutritional, what you call the capability, or I would say nutritional conditions. But here, what is happening is now the processed foods, which are coming in large number, and even at the rural level also, we see a lot of traditional foods. How do we synchronize or bring them into a platform where they can be, maybe customized to the demands of the recent world or the new world. So this is something which is very, very important. We have been addressing all these issues. That means basically we get into capacity building of the students in a 360 degree, so that there are, I would say the technical manpower generation, which is very, very important for the industry to grow and also address the issues of the industry on the other side. And that apart, in fact, I would say just very recently we have opened up the business incubation facility at NIFTEM, which is a Section 8 company, which has been just, yesterday only we have, just put it on the website. And that will create a lot of interest, not only among the students, even the budding entrepreneurs. They can come with new ideas and also prove their, technology, what they want to, what they wish to. And NIFTEM will support all of them. So especially in taking their ideas forward so that we can come up with new technologies. And another big area I would say today, the food safety and quality issues. So which are not understood at all by, I would say, by many people. Though the FSSAI is there, I would say probably in the last 3-4 years, I think they have become very, very active and their reach is seen everywhere. In fact, this is another area where we wish to even go for some sort of a certificate program or a degree program on food safety and quality, where we can create the required technical manpower. This apart, I think another very important area which we thought is like the business management perspective. And how do we bring in or create people for business management? Of course, we have conceived a program called an MBA in food business management. So this again gives them a lot of opportunity, both through national and international exposure. We try to build a new cadre of people who can really take care of the industry requirements. And I would further even say that we, the institutes under the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, we are contributing towards the all-round R&D development in the country through collaborations, through maybe even international collaborations as well, and through exchange programs and even student exchange and all that. These are all the roles and responsibilities to make this industry robust. It is only to create a quality manpower which can take care in the years to come. So the entire industry and also maybe entrepreneurship qualities have to be improved. That is where probably I think we are striving hard. And maybe I think there are many other activities which we are undertaking anyway. I'll stop at this moment. Thank you.
Sir, just now you said about the food safety, since the pandemic is going on. So consumers have also become very conscious about the traceability of the product. So according to you, what is the role of traceability in food processing?
Yeah, I think, probably now there are many, food testing laboratories across the country. So in fact, we do have one accredited, NABL accredited lab here. Only thing is now FSSAI is giving license for food packaging or food production and packaging and distribution and marketing. But the quality concerns are not raised by anybody. So anybody can do it, paying some fee and all that. But now the concerns, especially because of the COVID, I would say, many people want a lot of the fortified foods, or maybe the nutraceuticals added foods, or maybe the food which can really improve their immune response and things like that. Means these are things which are actually advertised by people who have certified that. So that certification has to be very active. So probably that is one thing. We should not take this food safety and quality for granted. We need to be very particular only after assessing that. See, fortification is just not mixing. How much is available for bio assimilation or digestion and all that, that is very important. Unless we address these issues, even just a general certification doesn't help. So that means the food has to be properly certified, tested and certified. So only then probably I think they should be able to put up that logo and things like that. Otherwise it becomes like any other food. Earlier it was all done by the rural people. Now we are industrializing it, giving a good shape of packaging and all that, and we are selling it. That means the quality concerns still, I would say, are not fully understood nor implemented. This is very, very important years to come.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your wonderful insights. Now, I would like to ask Dr. Anand Dharma Krishnan, he's the director of IIFPT. So, sir, my question to you is, during COVID period, many farmers throw their produces like vegetable, fruits, mainly tomatoes and grapes, to drain as they were not having price for their produce. So, what kind of technology or system is available for small farmers to overcome such issues and enhance their income?
Yeah,
Is
so
there
good
any
question.
technology
Actually,
to? Sorry,
yeah, it
so
is
you can go.
available. The technologies, what we made it, IFPT, Indian Institute of Food Processing Technology, we made a one mobile food processing unit that can be like a tomato ketchup and tomato puree. We can make it from the single unit in the mobile, and we put the boiler and all the stuffs. And Tamil Nadu government ordered a 5 vehicle, and we supplied to Tamil Nadu government 5 vehicle. Exactly that usage was increased during the COVID period because of transport. The first lock period, the transport totally cut off. That time, these farmers unable to move out from that main portion to the where they supposed to sell the even marketplace. They called this vehicle. Its vehicle is moved to that place, and they made converted to tomato puree and ketchup, and they supply to other markets as well. So it's widely used. So such type of technology always will help when the transport is the clutch, and we need to think about such type of technology. And second thing is tomato is the we have the problem. Our tomato has the less total solid content than the imported. That's what always we used to see that why we are going for that. We need to have the some of the technologies, because that evaporation like water evaporation is the main problem when you wanted to convert into the puree, and that's what people are preferring. If you wanted to go for 5,000 tons tomato puree making, you need how much amount of the water? Even 1% of the solid is the huge amount of the water evaporation capacity. You need to put it into the. That's what people are going to for the importing instead of going for our own. So we have developed the technology, including the onion. We have done the onion peeling machine, onion powder making machine, and all we have developed. We have deployed, and it's working very well. Even we are given the total business model for farmers producers company. It is working in Setikulam village itself, where the farmers are producing the onion more than 70,000 hectares, and it runs. Same model only now we adapted. We are going for the Ministry of Food Processing Industry. They're going to set up the incubation center throughout the country. Almost the same model what its onion producing company is operating at Setikulam village. I come to the point what Sanjeev Gupta sir said about, really is a good point what he's touched about automation. We need to think about more automation in our food industry, because we need to avoid man handling with any of the fruits and vegetables, any of the commodities. That is the important point what our VC sir has said about the food safety. So how to do that? Automobile industry, they have done very well. Almost 80% is totally automized. Why not? We can't do the robotics conditions to the food industry. We need to think how we can bring the robotics into our food industry. That is the one side. Second thing, if you wanted to minimize the waste utilization and handling, two things is possible if we add along with our supply line as well as industry line. One is the IoT and ANN. Both we can couple together. We can able to manage that. That's what recently all people are thinking about, how to use artificial ANN or IoT to minimize the total wastage. Where is the wastage is generated? How to minimize that? Definitely that will help. And automation is the next step. Definitely we need to think how to adapt that automation along with the robotics and the big data analysis. So where is the wastage is generated, where we can use this wastage. For example, we worked with the PepsiCo, and potato peel is wasted in the Siddha starch. That is the one Pune company is applying to the PepsiCo. That peel is totally wasted. They simply dump it. Then we worked with the Pepsi and Siddha Starch and Nottingham University. We developed the technology to take the starch and add back into the same potato peel. Now the Siddha Starch, an Indian company, is earning a money out of that potato peel. So such type of technology, what Girish Bajaj sir is mentioning about, really is a good point. So what you mentioned about, we need to work together, Indian industry and the institutions. Until unless we have a joint hand, we can't do that. For example, this problem is brought to us in the starch. We don't know that problem what they are facing. He told us simply we are dumping the potato peel into the waste. Nobody is even buying that out. So we thought, why not we'll work on to that. That problem has to be brought by the industry. Second one is, as an institution, we can always work for the maximum, go for the 1 kg run only. We can't think about more than 10 or 2 tons. Now we have come to that level. But how to put joint hand? That's what this one example I said. Even we developed a sensor. Main problem what we are facing the storage goodowns. 10% of wastage is happening in our storage godown. We produce 280 million tons of the food grains, but still 10% wastage is a huge amount. We are unable to increase 1 to 2 tons per year for the food grains production. How come we reduce from this one to the even 5% is a quite lot. So we don't have the proper monitoring system in all our storage warehouses. Can we develop the sensor can monitor moisture, because moisture of wheat and rice should be less than 14%. And even if you add on to the carbon dioxide, if you monitor, we can monitor the insect growth also. So we developed the sensor along with the Brunel University and Enquiring Mind company. There's a well-versed company in UK company for the sensors. We developed the sensor. The cost is only 3,500 rupees. You can put it into any storage godown. You can monitor from your mobile what is the moisture and temperature. Now we move on to that, not only grains, spice and all the group. Very soon we are going to release that sensor commercially available. And our Indian companies, 3 companies already shown interest to make the manufacture that sensors. This is the first time we have the combined all the things with, we use the IoT network and we have the data collection as well. So throughout the country, if you launch these sensors, we get the data. So such type of things institution can't do alone. And we don't have such type of problem what industry is facing. So industry has to come forward. We work together, and maybe Bajaj sir may be aware of that problem where it comes when we go for the signing the contract. Who holds the IPR rights? But now IFPT has made a very clear IPR policy. If we join hand, if problems, fund, everything comes, total IPR right is with the industry. If both we are putting the effort and everything, so then we can share it. And both have the right to sell the IPR. Once that IPR issue sorted out, then we can do this. Even IFPT worked with the pharma company for developing some of the molecules, because you know very well pharma company how tough it is, the IPR right. Even we able to do the such level of that. But what Bajaj sir is telling, yes, we need a proper policy. Maybe we can put up to our ministry, and you can also put up to ministry. We can have a such type of 5 years plan or 3 years plan. If you look at, sir, HPP, high pressure processing, 30 years back the technology is introduced. Till now, not even single company, Indian company manufacture high pressure processing. That's what we are unable to make it industrial scale in the high pressure processing. It's a very good technology for the coconut water preservation, but we cost of the capital investment too high, and the volume is very small. How to challenge this one? So we can put up the R&D. We work with the industry, because the pressure, material strength, which is that going for the 700 megapascal, that type of material strength manufacturing is a big challenge. We can work together. We can do that. And cold plasma technology again we can bring, and pulse electric. Not even single company making the industry. Small industries are doing that. May not work for the large scale what Bajaj is manufacturing fruits and vegetables. Same line, last line, you can add the puff. We can reduce the microbial load quite a lot. But that much capacity of the pulse electric field, how to create? We need a R&D for that. How to do that? So all joined together to work. And who will invest? That's what your question. Definitely government can support that. Then more people can adopt such technology. We can give the supplement to that. And 3D food printing, it's coming very rapid manner. Even we developed the 3D printer for first indigenous 3D printer in India. That's only 1 lakh rupees we developed. We wanted to bring it to the 50,000 rupees. Is it possible? But who will invest that on? How to make it a more scale production? And who will supply the ingredient for 3D printer ingredient? So both the things we need to look. So that we have to think how policies and industries, for example, now meat, alternative meat, people wanted that one. But we don't have a single company. Beyond Meat, only 2012, they started startups. Now they are ruling the whole world for the alternative meat. Why Indian company can't do that? It is easy to do that. We have all the knowledge and everything. Where is the problem is we are not sitting the table together, industry and policy makers and all these. Maybe this type of talks maybe help us to move forward. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Krishnan, for your wonderful insight. And as you said, it is the need of the time for the industry to go hand in hand with the research institute for betterment of food ecosystem industry. So my next question is for Dr. Rajesh Rathi, the President of Control Infotech Private Limited. Sir, my question is to you. India is still depending on import of food processing machinery. What incentives and schemes the government has in place to support this industry, and what inputs are required for the growth of local food processing machinery industry? Mr. Rajesh Rathi? Mr. Rathi, your voice is not audible. Please unmute your mic. Mr. Rathi,
Could you please try and unmute your mic, Dr. Rathi? Rohit, can you check? Dr. Rathi, could you please unmute your mic once again? Dipti, then maybe you can move on to the next speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. My next question is for PL Kaul, sir. He's the director of Marianshul India Private Limited. Sir, my question is to you that how Marianshul India is making difference to small and marginal farmers through the business.
Am I audible? Hello? Am
Yes.
I audible?
Yes, sir.
See, at the outset, let me compliment the organizers of Agro Food Vision 2020 organizing this beautiful 2-day webinar. I have had the opportunity to listen to some of the owners of Meta Food Parks, and we got very good, feedback as why they are not performing. Because my company has also been engineered a couple of mega food parks which are probably doing clearly better. And we have noted whatever their concern has been, we have through our association got it addressed through Ministry of Food Processing, but some way some bottlenecks are there. Now this session is pertaining to the technology, food technology and process plant and machinery. And I'm happy that I'm the last speaker so that I had the opportunity to listen to all the panelists here, eminent panelists here. Now, I would like to not go by what is going on and all that. I would like to share with all the panelists my 40 years of experience to make you understand why this food processing machinery has not developed really to the world standards till date. You see, immediately after the independence, our corporate sector, and public and private sector, corporate sector, they started focusing on infrastructure related activities like manufacture of steel, cement, fertilizer, petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, etc. And then they realized that we are an agro-based economy, we must look at the food sector as well. But some of them, both public and private sectors, started, processing of wheat, rice, grains, milk, and so on, which are the fundamental necessities that time to feed the masses. But then they continued like that till date and never bothered to go for the downstream products. One simple example is that our milk production is largest in the world. We have very well-established milk processing dairy plants, but downstream products are still missing. You see, all over the world, we have fantastic varieties of cheese available. And we don't have technology, and technology may be there at small scale level, but we don't have plant and machinery to manufacture continuously through automation these varieties of cheese. And we are importing these varieties of cheese. We are only knowing in our country cottage cheese, which is produced at micro scale level or household sector. So this is one of the reasons that commodities, manufacture of commodities, processing of food on commodity level has already been established, but downstream products in food technology, what are coming now, have not really taken shape. We have, even today, India is exporting commodities, and those are large volumes but very low margins. And nobody bothers, nobody has the courage till date from corporate sector as well as large scale sector to repack them, to process them, to export them as branded products, where the profit margins could be far higher. And what the foreigners do, particularly in Netherlands, they import our products, pack them in smaller retail packs, give a brand, and market the same at 10 times the value. This we have still not learned. Because as a consultant, whenever I get a client, big or small and all that, his first question is, will you help me in marketing? Will you arrange buyback? Oh, Baba, that you look at the small micro scale industry of Thailand. Everybody comes out with branded products. Nobody looks at, nobody questions about where do I sell, how do I sell, can you get me buyback? So this has been the biggest constraint. This mindset in the mindset from food processing industry has to change. Food processing industry, this manufacture of process plant and machinery has really not grown to international standards or whatever standards. Why? Because it is a direct function of the growth of food processing industry. For example, fruits and vegetables processing in 2004 was 1.6%. And today, after 15 years, 16 years, we are still lagging at 2%. So since the food processing industry as such, particularly of perishables, processing of perishables, fruits, vegetables, milk, etc., has not grown. So how do we expect the process plant and machinery manufacturers to grow accordingly to show the same pace? Because it's a direct function. Now that the awareness is there, now that food processing industry is growing, so I am sure that simultaneously the manufacture of process plant and machinery is going to keep pace with it. Next is, after 1989, the Ministry of Food Processing Industry has started giving a flip to the food processing industry, classifying it as sunrise sector and all that, and giving incentives for food processing. You see, we have some of the big corporate sector units for manufacture of plant and machinery, like we had Alfa Laval, L&T, Mather and Plate, which is already now gone. They also focus on food processing industry, which was the large scale need of the country, like milk processing. Milk processing, L&T and Alfa Laval have done fantastically well, but they have also not thought of the downstream lines, like whey protein. Whey protein is a fantastic byproduct of milk, but we don't have technology, we don't have process plant and machinery, we are dependent on the imports. As I mentioned, varieties of cheese and so on and so forth. New food processing industry, even today at large scale level, we bank upon the import of critical equipments. As some of the eminent speakers before me, panelists before me pointed out that large scale, for example, evaporator, sterilizer, they are still being imported. For example, all the potato processing units of 10 tons and above, they still import evaporators, they still import sterilizer, they still import aseptic packaging film systems. And we have never had the necessity, we were never thought of developing them indigenously. Why? There are reasons. Because now these imports, we have to realize, these imports are exorbitantly priced, these critical processing plant and machinery is exorbitantly priced, and at the same time, the exchange rate of our currency is so low that we have to pay through our nose, and I don't know how these units are going to be economically viable to compete in the global market. That is why our share of processed food products in global market is still below 2%, which is ridiculous because we are the largest producer of so many commodities. So we have to think about it. Now, All India Food Processors Association, and I was the president of the association as such, we used to submit our recommendations to the Ministry of Food Processing every year on, number one, the import of critical process plant and machines should be either at zero custom duty or minimal custom duty, so that we are able to import, we are able to see the technology, we are able to replicate the technology, and then we are able to get them indigenously produced. Ministry of Food Processing Industry was very, cooperative. They used to send our notes to the Ministry of Finance for consideration, but as such egos are there, the policy makers, they neither had the experience, they neither knew what food processing industry is, or they wanted to turn down these requests, little realizing that if we remove the import duty or minimize the import duty, it means peanuts in the overall budget. But they didn't have the forecast that what progress the country would have made if they had listened to us. We have not been able to learn from China, who did the same way, imported equipments, zero duty, gave incentives for copying or improving upon the technology, and they are supplying now these equipments to the whole of the world, including the developed countries. We didn't take the cue from Japan. Japan imports almost 75% of their food products, but their food processing machinery is fantastic. You see, there is even today no comparison to Ishida wares, Yamato wares, Judoki filling machines like Korea, South Korea. Today in India, we have imported a lot of machines from Lipac for automatic filling of ready-to-eat products. So how long can we go on depending on the imported plant and machinery? We have got to change our policy. As one of the eminent panelists said, that Minister of Food Processing Industry should also look at the machinery manufacturers for food processing industry. Some of the industries, some of the units have done very well, spending their own capital without looking for the incentives. These include like Goma Engineering, HRS, Praj Industries, even on Bajaj, and small entrepreneurs like Kailash Engineering, Do Well, and so on and so forth. But they had the courage to spend their own money. They would not get the incentives from the government to develop these units, these food processing machinery indigenously. I don't know how our dear friend Girish Bajaj is doing it. I must compliment Mr. Ananda Ramakrishna and Mr. Vasudevabha that they have started alliance with the food processing machinery manufacturers, giving them technology inputs and joining hands to build up. But the government also needs to support this activity as an R&D activity. We have Department of Science and Technology. I had the opportunity once to approach them for grant for development of vacuum dryers for food processing industry or vacuum freezer. It is such a complicated process that one forgets. They say it is wastage of time, go away. So we have got to be liberal. We have got to change the mindset of the government. So then only this. At the same time, I also blame not only the government, but the large corporate sector. They have never encouraged Indian engineers, Indian technologists, or Indian machinery manufacturers. I have glaring examples. One of the companies with whom I was associated has a project of about 500 crores, food processing project. And without involving any Indian engineers or Indian consultancy services or Indian manufacturers of process plant and machinery, they have offered as much as 70% stake to European companies, and European companies say that you relax, we will do everything by ourselves, we will get them engineered by our own companies, we will supply our own process plant and machinery, even nuts and screws and non-critical equipments. And then, so what are we doing? What are we doing? Similar, we have so many examples. Indian corporate sector doesn't realize that the cost comparison of Indian engineer, Indian food technologists, and foreign food technologists is the ratio of 1:12. If they give 1,000 rupees to Indian technologist or engineer or consultant, they have to give 1,200 rupees to 12 times the cost to foreign engineers. This we have to develop. We have such a largest pool of engineers, technologists, food scientists, and also then what these foreign companies do, they involve only skilled, non-skilled, and unskilled employees in India, workforce from India. And where do engineers go? Where do technologists go? We have to have a corporate policy of allowing collaborations with foreign companies. Our experience, as I told you, that some of the Indian companies have done very well. So we have to continue our effort on indigenization of the equipments and the process plant manufacturers of food processing machinery. The research institutions like NIFTEM and IFP must be financed suitably by the central government agencies, by the banks, maybe not just as grant and aid. There should be a contract that, okay, after you sell machinery, you start paying us back at the rate of 10% or whatever, like recurring royalty, so that they recover the money. But there has to be a generous policy of incentivizing the process plant machinery manufacturers, the research institutions, R&D institutions, and the consulting companies, if they have to, that innovate the industry. We were the consultants to the three biggest, largest honey processing plant machinery, honey process plants, for which there was no machinery available. We designed each and every part of machinery. We got them fabricated under our own supervision, and they are performing extremely well. So if this encouragement comes from the government, from the bank, from financial institutions, and we join hands with the institutions of excellence in India, I think we will be able to turn the corner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. P.L. Kaul, for sharing your views. Now I would like to invite Mr. Rajesh Rathi.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Well, thank God, finally I'm back.
Yeah. So I
thank
would
you.
like to.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you a question. So India is still depending on import of food processing machinery, as we all know. What incentives and schemes the government has in place to support this industry? And what inputs are required for the growth of local food processing machinery industry?
Dipti, let me first introduce myself so that there is a context to whatever I have to say. First of all, I am very lucky to be in the company of such diverse panelists. We have industry leaders here, we have industrialists here, and we have academicians here, and all of them are very important part of the ecosystem of the market. Having said that, primarily I am a industrialist in the automation domain, and automation is today all pervasive. There are multiple verticals, but food processing has assumed a very big role in the recent past in our country. Should have happened much earlier because we are a very agricultural country, but it's never late. Having said that, my bigger introduction today would be that as the leader of this organization, ISA. It stands for International Society of Automation. 75 years ago, it started as Instrument Society of America. Automation was not known as automation at that time. It was more about instrumentation, only open loop. And it was primarily an American organization. Today, 75 years later, it's an international organization, and automation today has become a buzzword in almost every industry, particularly in food processing, it has assumed a very big role, as we have also heard from several other speakers before me. I have been in India. By the way, ISA has got 14 districts all over the world. India is the district number 14. We have 8 sections over here. We have about 1,000 members here, and we have totally about 75 student sections in India. And this part I want everybody to note, that we have one of the largest population of students who are our members. Almost 1/3 of the world members, student members, are in India. And that is our strength, and that is what we need to leverage. So with this context, a little later I will address what ISA does and how we can contribute and what is its relevance in today's conference. But your question was what government is doing and what should be done. What government is doing, particularly in the area of food processing, I think there are many other speakers over here who are much more knowledgeable on the subject. I can only talk about what is being done in the area of academics, and AICTE in the recent years has been talking about the industry and academics interaction. They have at some point in time made it mandatory to have 2 internships for every engineering student. I don't think it has been implemented fully yet. The idea is good, but it has to be implemented. And it cannot be done just by AICTE saying that. It has to be done at multiple levels. And we'll talk about that very, very shortly. Having said that, what needs to be done? I think one of the first things, if we have to become a successful food processing country, with that industry having a very large part of our GDP, automation is going to be inevitable. This has been noted before. This is because without automation, not only that we don't get the kind of economies of scale, but we essentially don't get the kind of quality, we don't get the kind of traceability, which are essential parts of today's food processing industry. Having said that, let me come back to what ISA does. ISA, the International Society of Automation, our primary role is in making the standards. Once we make the standards, then we publicize them through the events and publications, and then we also do a lot of training and certification. These are the five things that we do. Today, automation has assumed a big role not only in manufacturing, but also in the information part of the manufacturing, which has now become almost inevitable in every other industry. But in food processing, it is extremely important because food safety is primary concern of many people. I'm sure none of us would have forgotten what happened in 2015 when a certain noodle product took everybody by storm, and all the product in the market had to be recalled and destroyed. Traceability has been our concern ever since then, and ISA in India had organized a conference called Food Safety at that time. This is just incidental that I'm letting you know. But today, in manufacturing robotics, for example, it was just a couple of years ago that 99% of the robots were used only in automotive industry. And I'm happy to inform all of you, today, globally, 8% of the robots are used in food processing industry. This is because, not just because you want to remove the manpower. There are places in manufacturing where it is impossible for human beings to reach. There are places which are too cold, too hot. Also, there are places which are very, very vulnerable to contamination. So human contamination is very, very important to be avoided. And these are the places where these robots are used. Let's talk about the later part of it. It is extremely important to monitor the conditions under which the processing is happening. The temperatures, the pressures, the flows, the moisture, everything has to be monitored continuously. It has to be logged. anytime there is a deviation, not only the quality and the consistency of the food for branded food products, am I still audible, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the slides that you are displaying, we will take it up a little later. I will go through it towards the end of my presentation. So having said that, we need to log this. The moment there is a deviation, there has to be an instant alarm. And I heard Dr. Anand Krishnan mention the moisture sensor. Things like that, coupled with the IoT technologies, the cloud technologies, somebody sitting very far away from the manufacturing process has to be alerted that something is going wrong and needs correction. And this has to be done instantly. The data gathered over a period of time needs to be analyzed to find out how the process, the productivity, the quality, the contaminability can be improved. And so technologies like IoTs are helping us to do that. And finally, it is no longer just the data collection during the manufacturing process, but from there onwards, where the food is going, how it is traveling, how it is being used, where it is being used, all the data is also getting collected using IoT technologies. I'm sure all of us are very closely monitoring what's happening right now for the COVID vaccine. The cold chain is a very important part of that, and the automation technologies that are being deployed to make sure are extremely important. So what do we do with all this information? What are we going to do to make sure that food processing industry in our country, in our markets, goes forward? The first thing that has to happen is the skill development right at the bottom of the ladder from where it starts, which is in the universities. Earlier, I told you that we have 75 student sections and they are growing. The role that ISA plays in that is a very, very close industry and academics interaction. Our leaders, our members, they are all industry leaders or industry members, and we routinely go to these universities. We make sure that there is a close interaction between the industry and the academics. We are designing the curriculum for a lot of colleges where our members are engaged. And this, I believe, is what is required right now as one of the first steps. The second thing is that in our food processing industry, right from day one, we are saying that this is the sunrise industry, but from day one, we have to make sure that we follow certain standards. Otherwise, it's going to go completely haywire. If everybody starts doing their own things and there are no standards, we will go completely helter-skelter and not be able to follow a certain discipline. And that's where we play a role. We have standards like ISA 95, which helps the manufacturing process to manage the interaction between the ERPs and the manufacturing process. And the later part, which is the data part. And now if we are going to depend so much on the data and the data manipulation and the data reach and the cyber part of that, the most important thing is cyber security. If the data is going to be corrupted, if it is going to be fudged, then it is going to be impossible to control the outcome of that. Having said that, ISA has standards like ISA 99, 62443, which has been the IEC version of that. And this is something that we promote. We have brought this out, and this is something that we would like to educate the industry about, including the food processing industry. Finally, I would like to I'd like to complete my presentation by saying that we have to look at the half glass full. Earlier in the conference, I have seen some discouraging or rather cynical views about what our policymakers do, what they are not doing, how it can be. I mean, there have been several examples of what has not been done. But today, I think we have ingredients of going forward with high speed. We have a very young population. We have a good policy framework. And I think above everything else, there is a lot of enthusiasm to make this country very, very vibrant. I think we should leverage these times, and organizations like AgroVision should also be catalyst in doing that to bring it all together. Finally, I think the three pillars the industry, the academia, and the policymakers. If three of us can collaborate, we can take this industry forward with great gusto. Thank you very much. And ISA will certainly be very happy to play a role of becoming the glue to make this all happen. We are a non-profit organization and we'll be very happy to contribute. Thank you very much. And I think, Vibha, I will skip the presentation because everything that was in there, I've already said in my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rafi sir, for your sharing your thoughts. Now I will move on to Mr. Girish Bajaj. My question is to him that earlier I asked to Mr. Rafi also that what inputs are required for the growth of local food processing machinery industry?
Deepti, when we talk about the machinery growth, there has to be a 360-degree view. On one side, we have to look at the policies of the government, which have to be pro incentivization and pro encouraging the localization of the. So if you see, if my question is, what if the policies in 1989 were not brought in for the Ministry of Food Processing for the food processing industry? Would it be still the same? I still think it would not be. So similarly, the catalyst has to be from the government, that it has to identify that the food processing equipment manufacturers and the industry is very important for the overall growth of the industry. So we are a very fundamental part of this family of industry. So that is one thing. So incentives, incentivization, then tie-ups have to be very, very important. Mr. Kaul rightly mentioned, in my career spanning about 25 years, frankly, many times we've actually had to think 10 times before investing in R&D capabilities because we are an MSME. Let's accept the fact. And for an MSME to take out even 1 crore of its own money to sort of get into the R&D part, not knowing how successful it would be, is a very major challenge. And we've actually done that and not have been successful also. So as Dr. Ananda Ramakrishnan rightly mentioned, I wish, and I see that that model overall in the other parts of the world, especially in Europe and US, is so well entrenched. I see universities cooperating so well with the industry. यहाँ पे total disconnect है between the industry and the academia. What academia, it's like saying the left hand does not know what the right is doing, and vice versa. So I wish we could both join hands together, and the government has to provide some sort of a framework to that. That, okay, let us say tomorrow if IFPT and Bajaj were to develop a technology, what sort of incentives or what sort of a profit sharing can happen, and where does the IP lie? So those things can be charted out, and then it could. So what US can do, why can't we do? If MIT can develop technologies for the food across, even DRDO has been doing that for India. Why can't there be so those frameworks have to come in. Thirdly, very importantly, is that the industry also has to, even from our aspect, we have to see that we have to develop technologies which are robust, which are reliable. We have to keep in mind the food safety part of it also, and the automation also. So these are the 4 or 5 factors which, if brought together, so as I said, there is no one point that if triggered can lead to development of food processing. It is a multiple point where deep brainstorming has to be done, and if done, and if all of the stakeholders come together and contribute to that common goal of, let's say, by 2025, can we indigenize 30 or 40% of what has been imported as on 2020? And move towards that. I'm sure we can all develop and let the imported. I'll share with you a small analogy. I visited some of the European manufacturers asking for collaboration. The constant reply that I always get is, why do we need to come into India? You guys come to our country, you guys import the machinery, you guys pay 7.5% import duty, and that's it. Where is the need for us to come to India? And as Dr. Kaul rightly said, they are paying 12 times the labor or what is cost is in India. Why can't India produce the same machinery? If there is an incentive on collaborations, why can't the same evaporators or aseptic sterilizer fillers be made in India? So that sort of a gentle nudge, that sort of a pro-industry view has to be taken. Some policies have to be created. All stakeholders have to come in. And I'm sure in times to come, this industry can grow and develop in the lines of what other industries have done in India. So that's my take.
Hello, Dipti, can you hear me? Hello, Dipti, can you hear me?
Aditi, you need to unmute your mic. Your mic is on mute.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, so my quick answer to your question, Dipti, is if I have to put my finger on one thing which can be done as an action point, there are several, but if I have to choose one among them, which is most important, I would call it incubation. Earlier, Dr. Vasudevan mentioned that in his institution there is incubation now. I come from IIT Madras, and as an alum, I routinely mentor the incubatees in the incubator in IIT Madras in Chennai. In there is a rural incubator, and there are several innovations that have come out of that incubator. I think grooming the young minds who are raring to go right now is the way to go. India has got such a large population of younger population, and very many of them are extremely innovative. I think it is channelizing this energy to become world's best. And I can tell you, apart from the institute, I also reside in Bangalore, which is the hub of a lot of startup companies. And some of the products which have come out from here, particularly in the area of food processing, the dairy kind of products, they are better than anything else in the world. So there is an opportunity for us. We never need to say that we cannot be, we have to only follow others. We can be the best, we can be better than others, and we must just have that confidence and go forward. So I think if the industry and the academics can collaborate, and we can encourage our students right when they are in the institute, I think that will be one of the best things that we'll do to ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts. My question is for Mr. Gupta, Sanjeev Gupta. Sir, in recent, government has passed 3 important farm bills. So, I would like to know that what impact will it make on food processing machinery industry? How will it give boost to the industry?
Well, I really don't have much of knowledge about this, the farm sector. So really try to connect with the food processing machinery would be a little out of reference. But I think what is more required is the post-harvest technology, because as you know, generally speaking, there is a lot of wastage happening at the farm end at the time of harvesting, and there's a huge gap available, which leads to a great potential of a post-harvest technology, and especially in products which have a lower shelf life. So through this open policy, I think that is a big opportunity in the technology segment as such, to push for such kind of technologies which can help the farm produce reach the processors and then finally get processed. I think this this kind of a field will be big time opportunity for the technology sector.
Okay. And what lessons industry have learned from the pandemic?
Well, if I talk about the food sector as such, so as far as the processing side is concerned, you see, about ourselves, apart from leading the association for the machinery manufacturers, we are also manufacturers of machinery. in the company Kanchan Metals. We started our activity as food machinery importers. Then we set up our own unit, and now we do a lot of specific R&D in collaboration with specific customers and develop solutions for them. And we incidentally also are food processors. We also have two snack food processing plants. So what we have learned is that during this pandemic, there were a lot of challenges when we reopened. And one of the biggest challenges was getting the labor force in time or in the right quantity, or the same labor force which was working earlier. So that led to a situation where how to run your operation with that kind of a lesser labor force. So the need of automation was really felt at that time. So as I have said earlier, the greatest learning is automation, the need of automation, and the areas of automation in the process of running a factory is now much more better identified rather than just looking at a theoretical configuration of a line. And second thing is the requirement of the hygiene has also changed. It is no more the old understanding of the hygiene. Even the hygiene standards have to be maintained in with a different perspective. Food industry has always been, it's always had a very big demand of hygiene, but now this has been added with the requirement of health hygiene from the point of view of pandemic. So this has also given a lot of new opportunities to work on to provide that kind of a hygienic leading solutions to the processors. And third thing is that there is a little bit of shift in the demand pattern or the consumption pattern. A lot of take-home size packs have become a bigger market than the mass marketing packs. And a lot of focus has gone into healthy foods. So this is also bringing in a big market potential for such kind of technologies. We believe in a way of working of collaborating with food processors where we are developing specific solutions for them, and they help us in the R&D, because until and unless our segment gets recognized by the government, the real focus is not getting into it from the policy makers, and the requirement of the collaboration is not happening. So this is the route which we have adopted, and it is showing good results. So I think these are the learnings from the pandemic. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're very much audible. Deepti,
Yeah.
could you please unmute your mic again?
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thoughts. Would anyone like to add in the session?
Yeah, if I can add something here, probably.
Right, sir.
I think a good interaction, or I would say the contribution by each of the panelists has taken place. Now I know we need to really look at the real requirement of the industry also. Probably one thing is that now the population is rapidly growing, and side by side the urbanization, which is increasing. I would say by 2050, more than 68 or almost 70% of the people will be in urban areas. Now we are bringing in the smart city concepts, and a lot of people are coming for jobs earlier, and now they are part of the urban sector. So how do we address this issue? I think it is something which is very, very important. That means it is not only just producing the food on one side, providing them the safe and quality food. I think unless, as was said by many of the panelists, the automation is the key which is really required, not only in agriculture, even in the industry. In fact, as per the Industry 4.0, which was formulated by the President of World Economic Forum, I think we need to lay a strong foundation on 9 strong pillars. That's very important. One is, of course, the big data and analytics, autonomous robots, then simulation, horizontal and vertical system integration, Internet of Things, cyber security and cyber physical systems, the cloud additive manufacturing, augmented reality. So that means these things become very, very important. I would say this probably requires not the usual manufacturing process. That means we need to understand the real requirement in terms of, I would say, unless we have a big data, we will not be able to do anything with regard to the automation part of it. I think that is something we need to properly understand and take forward how best we can really address these issues. That is something I would say which are very, very important. In addition to, of course, a lot of these modern technologies could be the sensors, could be the 3D printing and all that. So that becomes a real essential requirement of the industry. That means there has to be a stronger collaboration between the academia and the industry, where a lot of facility need to be created on developing equipments. I would say that this is one thing which probably doesn't end up with creating a facility for student training. So we need to have a much larger facility in terms of engineering facility, which can be really useful with people, big industry people who are producing a lot of these metals, maybe the Jindal group and things like that. They need to really work closely with the industry, understand the industrial requirement. Of course, Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu is the hub for most of these indigenous instruments or equipments which are being used in the food industry today. So we need to look at all these things and probably indigenize. And of course, now it is happening slowly because, of course, the processed foods are becoming more and more important. People have realized that they should get into this sort of a business. So that is one thing which I would say it is, I would say, further a sunrise sector where we can cut a lot of these international imports and support or promote the indigenous production of equipments, which can be small in the beginning and slowly we can improve upon and try to come up with good equipments which can address the large scale adoption. So now I think the first stage should be the micro industries. We need to look at their requirements where they may spend something like about 30, 40 or 50 lakh maximum 1 crore rupees. So within that, what is that we can do? How is that we can really come up with some equipments which are useful? Probably I think that is one area we need to really focus. So this, if it happens, probably I think other things will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And let me sum up this session on the note that this agro-food processing machinery industry, it is still in unorganized form, and there is need of strong collaboration between academia and industry. And food processing machinery industry needs to use IoT technology and cloud technology, like the latest technology, for the growth. And definitely government needs to change the policy, especially the import duty, for the growth of agro-food processing machinery industry. Thank you very much for all panelists. I would like to extend my thanks to all the panelists. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dipti, and thank you all the speakers for such a wonderful session. Thank you, sir.